I am so excited for today. I painted this piece quite a while back and I am finally now getting around to sharing it with you. This painting was actually inspired by some lily flowers that I have just growing right in a window box right in my own home. I just love spring and summer months because I can get some of the best picture references and inspiration through the plants and flowers that grow around this time. So without further ado, let's jump right in. First off, we need some watercolor paper. Now, you can see here that I already have a little penciled drawing on my paper, and to hopefully make things easier for you, I've created a nice outline drawing here that I will have available in my Etsy shop that you can simply download, print, and trace right onto your watercolor paper using a light table or even just a well-lit window in your house. This can just help you skip the time and effort of drawing this on your own, and you can get right to painting. I'll leave a link for my Etsy shop in the description of this video, along with links and information for any of the other products you see me using today. All right, next up we of course need watercolor paints, a paper towel, and some clean water. And last but not least, some brushes. I have just 3 brushes I'll be using for this piece today: a number 8 round brush, a number 4 round, and a number 1 rigger. These are all brushes that will be included in my upcoming Craftamo 12-month watercolor class subscription boxes. I'm excited to say I will actually be launching these in just a few weeks, so make sure you sign up to be notified when they are available. I will also leave some information and links for this in the description of the video as well. I'll just quickly tape my paper down with some artist tape to prevent some warping, and then we can get started. Okay, let's go ahead and pull a couple of colors out onto our tray really quickly. First, I will have some nice, rich gamboge yellow. Then I'll pull out a little bit of alizarin crimson also. The good news is that we are really going to have a fairly limited color palette today. All right, now you know what? I just decided to do something else really quick because I'm actually planning to have this painting be a little bit more on the light value side of things. I think I'm going to pull out my kneaded eraser, roll it up into the shape of a hot dog, and then roll it around on my page a little bit just to lighten up those pencil lines. This just picks up some of that loose graphite on the page and makes the lines a little bit lighter. That way they won't be quite as visible in the finished painting. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. Now, I'll be painting these petals using the wet on wet technique today. So I'll just take some water and start painting it on this petal here using the number 8 round. Now, you might notice that there is still a little bit of color in here, which is actually great. I kind of want a hint of pink in this base layer. Really, this is basically what I consider just dirty or tainted water. There's really not a ton of color. Now that I've got the tainted water on here, I'll just put this number 8 round in my other hand for a minute, pull out the small number 4 round, and I'll take a good concentrated amount of the gamboge and paint that on the petal closest to the center of the flower and let it blend upwards a little bit. Then I'll just switch back to the number 8 round, take a small amount of alizarin crimson right in the tip of the brush, and start adding in this color, focusing it mostly around the edges of the petal and maybe a few parts in the center area to create some shadows and dimension. I like to just start with a smaller, lighter amount first to see how it looks, and then I can always come back in here and add some darker, more concentrated spots if I need to as well. I'll probably use a touch of this color to also paint in some vein lines throughout the petal. There we go. Doesn't that look so nice? The best part about this piece is that we get to now just use those same basic steps and techniques to finish off the rest of the petals. Now, as a side note, you may notice me skipping every other petal as I paint just to allow for a little bit of drying time in between sections so that they don't all start blending into each other. Someone asked me just a little while back about how to make this wet on wet technique work well. I love the effects it can create, so I tend to use it a lot. But for me, it seems to work the best to have the initial layer of color, or water in this case, nice and watery. When the area is wet enough, then it really helps that second and third layer of paint and color spread out well. It also keeps the area from drying out too quickly. If that first layer of paint starts to dry before you start adding in the second layer, that is what can create blooms of paint. And obviously, it's not going to naturally spread the color out as well either. Now, I don't know if that made any sense at all, but basically just try to keep the base layer more watery and then the second or third layers a little bit more concentrated. I really hope you're finding this tutorial fun and helpful so far. If you're enjoying my painting and teaching style, I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming weekly tutorials. Now, this little space here is more like the underside of a petal, so I'll just point out that I won't be using yellow on this area. All right, now before finishing off the rest of the petals, I'm just going to give them a few more minutes to finish drying. But while I wait, I'm going to go ahead and pull out some colors to paint in the stems and the leaf for this flower. I think I'll try a couple of different greens here, maybe some olive green and some sap green. I'll use the number 4 round brush to paint the stem in with, and I will actually also be using the wet on wet technique for this as well. So I'll start with a little bit of water first on this area. Then when I'm ready, I'll take just a touch of maybe some of the sap green first and start spreading that color up this leaf a little ways. Very good. Now let's change it up a bit by taking a touch of the olive green and blending that in here next. Now, I might as well go ahead and paint in the rest of the greenery while I'm at it, but make sure that you let the little leaf strand dry before painting in the stem that's underlapping it. Awesome. This is really coming together so nicely. I think those initial petals are dry enough now, so let's move back up there and paint in the remaining petals just like we did before. All right, doesn't this look great? I just love this so much. We only just have a few details and finishing touches to add in, and we can call this done. In my mind, though, it's really these finishing touches that turn a good painting into a great one. First up, I think it might be fun to add in a few paint splatters to the piece. I will just use a scrap paper I have here to cover up the space that I don't want the splatters to go. Then using some alizarin crimson, I'll load up the number 8 brush and just tap it against another brush to release some of that paint. I don't think I'm going to be doing this all around the page, maybe just near the upper left-hand corner and the bottom right-hand corner to sort of go with the flow of how the flower is turning and facing on the page. Okay, next up, let's add in this stamen of the flower. I think I'll just use some of this olive green color for this. Maybe I'll darken it up a little bit by adding in some touches of Payne's gray. Now, you can paint this color directly on if you want to, or you can use the wet on wet technique again and paint a touch of water on the top circle area first and then add in the color to that. Really, whatever you prefer. Whatever you decide, just try to create some sort of highlight area just to give it some extra interest. All right, now that we've got the tops painted in, let's add in the thin stamen lines connecting the top to the center of the flower. I might try something a little bit crazy for this. I'll pull out the thin number 1 rigger for this part to keep my lines nice and thin, and then I'll take a touch of the alizarin crimson to paint the line in with. And if you'd like to add in some shadow and dimension to the line, all you have to do is take some Payne's gray and a concentrated amount of alizarin crimson to make a nice, dark, rich red color, and then you can add that into part of the line. Now for my last little detail, I've got this rigger brush out and ready. I'm just going to take a touch of the alizarin crimson color again and add in a few more thin, crisp vein lines along the petals. Now we do already have some lines on here, of course, so you don't have to do this if you don't want to. But because we added the previous lines when the paint was wet, they are more soft and blended. This will just add a little something extra here. And you'll never guess what I did here. Some of my splatters weren't dry, and as I was painting in the vein lines, I swiped my hand right through them. I hate when I do that. I had to just quickly take some water and scrub some of those smears and wipe them with a paper towel the best that I could to make my mistake less noticeable. But oh well, it's frustrating, but it happens. I might be able to paint in a few more splatters in this area just to help it look less noticeable too. All right, guys, I think that's actually it for this piece. This was so delightful to paint, and except for my little smears here at the end, it turned out pretty good too. I'm so glad you joined me today. I hope you had some fun and maybe even learned something new. If you did enjoy this tutorial, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.